Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Duality. It is the 15th of March today in New Zealand, and I know that it's still the 14th of March, which is Pi Day in America. But today here in New Zealand, we are halfway through the month. And once again, we're back here thinking about the two sides of reality, the opposites and the complementaries. And once again, I am joined by Roger from Roger Hansen Live. Hey, Roger, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. It's a very wet, grey day here today. So I'm all wrapped up and warm. How are you? You're moving into spring now, aren't you?
Yeah, it was actually almost 70 degrees today. I was like, I didn't know what to
Oh,
think.
wow.
So, we,
Goodness me. Yeah.
we got
Quick
a
reminder of summer, in fact.
we got a little bit of a sprinkle this morning, but it didn't go long.
Right, right. Well, we are also going to hopefully be joined a little bit later by Rush of Waves, who has been, he says, reading up about bees and ants, because I think those of you who were with us 2 weeks ago remember that Rush was talking to us about electricity and magnetism and how all our cells in our bodies are driven by these magnetic and electrical forces that propel us forward almost against our own will. We are driven by these external forces which appear to be contradictory. But when you look at them more carefully, you see this dual nature of things. Actually, it works together to produce one whole uh, sort of entity that is moving through time and space in a quite miraculous and strange way. So hopefully Rush will be coming along to give us more insights into those types of thinking. But before we start, Roger, I thought that we would have a little bit of a talk about a different type of duality and a duality I'm starting to become aware of because of doing so much work with you and other people over in America, in different time zones. And I'm starting to become aware that in America, are different types of people according to where in America the people live. Now, I suppose everybody has that in their country. And I suppose in a way we could be talking about New Zealand today. We could be talking about the North Island, which is very industrialized and full of tourist industries and things like that. And then the South Island, which is very rural, full of cows and sheep and tourists. But we're not. We're talking about America. And the interesting thing about America is that it's not just one country. It's 52, is it? Different states, which are like miniature countries, and yet it is this one entity, this one complete autonomous nation, but made up of so many different ones. And the other thing, not just is there this sort of duality between the east coast of America and the west coast of America, but there's also the divide between the northern states of America and the southern states of America. And it was reminding me of that funny saying that people always say, well, there's two types of people in the world. There's those who make lists and those who don't make lists. Or there's, there's two types of people in the world. There's those who go to bed early and those who go to bed late. So, yes, there's always two types of everything, however you look at it. But you, Roger, live right in the middle of America.
Mm-hmm.
Do you experience a sort of a dualism of the different states on either side of you? What is it like?
It's really not even the two states on different sides or anything like that. It's Illinois itself. I mean, a lot of
Mm,
people have a misconception of this state. I've talked to you guys about it before, but like, well, first of all, everybody connects Chicago with the whole state of Illinois, and the truth of
right.
the matter is like southern Illinois and northern Illinois is as different as light and day.
Mhm.
Um, but when it comes to people in Chicago and up in northern Illinois, they just have a whole different way of looking at things. Their way of behaving, everything is completely different than what it is down here. And
Mm,
it's just now gotten within, I'd say, the last 20, 30 years to where like people from northern Illinois feel safe to even come down here, to be honest with you.
gosh, that's so interesting. So, what has changed, Roger, in the last 20 or 30 years? What
Uh,
happened to create that divide?
it's see in southern Illinois, everybody's more down home, and we have more
Mm,
of a redneck hillbilly kind of attitude. Like
mm-hmm.
they they don't. There's nothing normal about southern Illinois at all. If you've ever been here and you've met the people
Mm,
here, you would understand exactly what I'm talking about. And um, what happened was is like we have Carbondale, Illinois, which is a university town, and then all of these progressive ideas and everything from Chicago started filtering down into
mm,
these university towns, and now all of a sudden they're having like celebrating Greenpeace and stuff like that, and
right.
everybody's wanting to do their little protests. So
Mm.
it's really strange seeing people in Carbondale protest. You know, I mean, like they have nothing to really protest about.
Really, just this is happening these days. We'll go and join in.
Yeah, we're we're doing it in support. I'm like, okay, well, so and I do
So,
have
do you?
I do have to say too that like a lot of the people, like I've said like before, that they don't come down here, but a lot of the people from up
Mm,
north, more of them are coming down here. So we're getting a rise in
right.
crime and stuff like that as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. So, does the state of Illinois still have its own character? Do the people still identify as coming from Illinois? Or is there like a split, like a sort of uh, a personality split almost between the different people?
It's literally a personality split. Like people in northern Illinois have this like idea that it's all about freaking Chicago. You know what I mean? And
Right.
in southern Illinois, they're more smaller towns, smaller cities, and I
Hmm.
think instead of big business, we have small businesses, and the closest thing we've ever had to a big business was up in Effingham, Illinois, and then they closed the freaking Air Force base down up there.
Mm,
So
mm,
it's like that, you know. So everybody's had to pretty much deal locally, and you know, be able to basically work on small businesses, you know, through small businesses and things of that nature.
gosh.
You know, we've got Walmart and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, but
Mm,
it's not it's not like in Chicago, where
mm,
I hope
mm.
that answered what you were
No,
asking.
it's fascinating. So I'm thinking about what you're saying about like the more industrial people, the more urban people rather, and the more rural people. And I'm wondering if that's a similar thing between the East Coast and the West Coast of America, is that people came to America and landed on the East Coast and started developing urban areas on the East Coast. And then from that sort of established area, they started slowly moving out towards the unsettled lands and towards the wild, wild west. And so maybe it is this duality, this American duality that we and the rest of the world see. It's so interesting. It's just so fascinating to see one country with such markedly different factions in it. But do you think that urbanization and that traveling out towards the Wild West had a role to play in the development of the national character of American people?
That's tough to say because like when it comes to the United States, they started out with the colonies, which was I think 12 colonies or 10.
Right.
But anyhow, they had those, and then after the colonies, there was the French-American War, and we went to war with the French Americans. That's
Yes.
when we were still under control by England. So it went from
Hmm.
those colonies. Well, actually, no, we were still. There was the French American War, and then that was then we had the colonies where we separated from England and became states. But
Hmm.
while we were colonies, we went to war with it was after, I think, yeah, because we
Hmm.
acquired the land all the way to the Mississippi afterwards. So that would have been after we were the United States. So then we
Hmm.
went from having those colonies to having all that territory, and not only that, but it was influenced by a lot of France, a lot of French people.
Right.
So you had that, and then later on, well, actually, we purchased that. So I take that back. We actually purchased that from Napoleon, I believe. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, we had the war with
Hmm.
with the French and them during the time we were colonies, and then afterwards we bought it from Napoleon whenever he was financing his war in Europe.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I believe that's what happened. But anyhow, we were influenced by the French and the English, so all of a sudden we started getting a mingling of different words and languages and stuff like that.
Right.
And then
Right.
after that, we had the Spanish War, and that's when we went in and took over the West Coast.
Okay.
And
All right.
Texas was actually a country of its own, and then eventually joined in with the United States. So,
Hmm.
so you got a
Gosh.
whole bunch of different things going on there. So, and
Yeah, you
you
sure
have a
have.
mingling of different languages too, which
Hmm.
uh,
Yes.
sorry about the history lesson.
No, that's fascinating. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. And we have, while you've been chatting, been joined by Rush of Waves. Hey, Rush, how are you today?
And Rush.
Hello. Hi.
Oh,
Yeah.
hi.
Wonderful.
And
It was a wonderful day. I popped in. I'm getting a really cool history lesson. That's really awesome.
yeah, no, it's awesome. And Rush, in fact, is from the West Coast. So this is a perfect time, Rush, for you to join and tell us what you on the West Coast think of the rest of America, the other half of America. Do Western, do people on the West Coast of America perceive themselves to have a different character from people on the East Coast?
Well, I mean, to take into account that we're all Americans and
Yes.
like the prior history that was being spoken of is the forming of our country and how the idea of freedom in America, and this goes along with duality, is that there was this people were uniting in America to be free. Of course, who's to say what that really means in terms of reality. But the idea was there, so it drew people to this place, and we were, there was all kinds of countries involved in finishing up the job and purchasing everything, coming in and putting up all the fences and stuff. But interesting, yeah, very interesting. Um, that we as Westerners, I think, our difference sometimes is that we're still on this leading edge of we can't give up the victory. Like we're not done conquering. We're wild, the Wild West, right? So we're like hold on to these concepts that maybe, and I think like the South is the same way. I mean, I think that's why it's hard to say nowadays in our country, because there's more unity, I think, because of possibly, the telephone and cars and the net. But connecting us all and keeping us united is, a community kind of organized function.
Mm-hmm.
And of duality in and of itself, that thing that started our country, that we have a cohesiveness to go walk across the street and say hi to your neighbor. I mean, even though there's a lot of stories of that not being a thing, but it's kind of, how people got out west, and we were the last to really get to the very edge. And not that my parents did any of that, but California became a very popular destination. There's a couple really key locations in California that are magic. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know what's so fascinating looking at America from the outside is that to an outsider, it appears that Americans are extremely aggressive to each other. The way they talk, the way they interact, the way they divide into different groups, it looks to an outsider as if there is no united in the United States. And yet, when I speak to people like you guys who come from different areas, different states, different lifestyles, different worldviews, you still have this huge pride and patriotism and belief in your flag, and you're driven towards this great beacon of freedom. And it's fascinating to me that America is such a good example of duality, this apparent division with the underlying cohesiveness. Do you see it like that, Roger?
Well, it all basically does come down to history, but a lot of it too, you have to understand the actual makeup of this country. You said it yourself. There's like 50 states within a country, like, and people don't understand that our diversity, which is the duality, is what actually makes us what we are, and like when English people and Europeans and even you guys over in New Zealand, when you look at us, you think, oh, they're crazy. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we think.
but the thing of it is the reason why you're just now seeing that is because you never really had access like you have today. You know what I'm saying? Like you're actually seeing the way we behave. We've behaved this way for freaking ever, okay?
Yes.
The craziness has always been there, and like with these 50 states, you have to understand that there's 50 constitutions that go with each of these 50 states, and some things are different from what the federal constitution, our constitution everybody hears about, knows. So there's some states that have more freedoms, there's some states that have less, so you've got that as well as the history. So you got all this diversity, and there is this sense that it's all about being America, but like there's even a duality when it comes to us in Canada. Okay, now like with Canada Canada was the people who were here that after the Revolutionary War were sent to Canada because frickin' they supported the king in England. So they had to leave and go to Canada. Okay. And there was hostilities there for a while, but if you look at it today, okay, and you look at the way the United States and Canada's relationship are, we have a better relationship with Canada, and they have a better relationship with us than what England does. Because we have that connection, you know, even though we were separated by the idea of freedom and being separate from England, we still have that connection, you know. So that right there is another example of it, you know. Like, you even have a duality between Canada and the United States, as well as the United States and all these states inside of it, you know. So it's pretty cool.
It's fascinating. It is very cool. It is very cool. And the other thing that I've been interested in, particularly in talking with you, Rush, because you live out in the forest. The other thing that's really interested me has been this division in America between the rural areas and the urban areas. Do you, Rush, you made a deliberate choice to not live in an urban area. Why did you choose to live in the forest? What is it for you that's the way of life for you?
Well, you know, the forest is a good place for someone to heal. So I'm naturally probably drawn here so that my body doesn't hurt as bad, because it's dealing with a bunch of environmental situations that put stress on your body. You know, it's hard to really focus on injuries and stuff, and you kind of just you'll end up with this what you call sometimes a new threshold, or a new baseline, you know, and you never really notice that you're getting worse and you're falling apart, and but a lot of people actually come out here in their older age and retire. It's it's a nice. We have a lot of forests in the United States that we've protected from city development and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of cities, but there's a whole lot of forests too. And a lot of them are burned, growing down, or growing back, and some of them are being used. But certainly, growing up in California, I watched all of Southern California disappear underneath the tarmac. I mean, it's all gone. It's all freeways and roads, and there's still hills and stuff. I mean, it's not all covered, but it could be very easily. And it's probably. I don't know what that is. I think it would cause a great duality, which is, just what we're in now. I like what Roger here was saying about the duality in, and it's all really, and at the same time, these things that unite us. So it's not about one or the other, but having a strong sense of yourself, and then a strong sense of getting along with whoever else, and that's important. And be able to be intelligent and work things out.
Absolutely.
And not all, but even in America's prior history to this, from the Indians, some of them were peaceful and some of them weren't, and didn't figure out how to trade nicely. They like the other way around. So, it's always been sort of a problem, I suppose, and like how it was mentioning, the crazy's always been around. There's always a wild part of us. There's all these stories you hear about on podcasts of the way that things happen with monkeys and chimpanzees, and then us. When we conquered the world. We weren't very nice to animals that were in our way.
Indeed.
So yeah, it's a scary world out there. It leads me right back to my dog chasing and biting a squirrel and killing it, and how terrifying it must be for that squirrel because the dog outweighs it. I don't know, 15 times its weight. So it just must look horrifyingly, scary. And that squirrel's running for its life, and
Yeah.
that's life. It's crazy how that's it's really normal. That's more normal than the life I'm living.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It interests me that you are so involved and passionate about nature, Rush. I was watching the little video clip that you have on your YouTube channel about the ants the other day. The little
Yes.
ants trying to move that massive, was it a breadcrumb?
It was some chunk of something. It was really hard to tell what it was. I thought maybe it was a really old piece of an orange peel. Kind of looked like a corn kernel sometimes to
Something,
me.
yeah.
But yeah, I think, yeah, I might have picked it up one time, and I still couldn't tell what it was. So it'd been out there, for so long. It's like, what is that?
Yeah.
Certainly something they're interested in, I guess, or not interested in. He was trying to keep it out of there. And
Aha.
yeah, Sisyphus the ant. He was so awesome, and that was the same ant through the whole film there that I made. Um, it was his mission to get that thing out of there, and he was gonna, at first he discovered that axe and went up the axe and fell off, and I didn't. Well, I don't know if this might have instigated this interaction between Sisyphus and I, but he's sure proved today. I tell you, I picked that little piece of kernel up that he dropped, and I set it right back down where he found it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's going back down to the hole to go back in, and he sees it there. And he literally looks at me and he's like, "What?" And he picks it up again, and he goes the same way, and he goes up the axe again. And his friends are sitting there helping him. He's got a couple of guys that have like been following him around. He's like the big guy on campus, right? So
Oh dear. Okay, your volume has gone, Rush. I'm sorry.
He got excited.
You've cut out.
He got excited.
Yeah. We have this problem every now and then with Rush and I. He has to leave and come back in. However, here he is back again.
okay. Yeah,
It was getting to the good part too, and all of a sudden the audio just goes off. We're like, well, what happened to that ant?
Oh shit! Yeah.
The suspense. Well, we're
Right.
going to have to direct everybody to your YouTube channel so they can find out what happened to the ant.
Yes. Yeah, I should probably go back and narrate that, because I did put a couple words up there and some arrows
Yes.
to point out, Sisyphus. Incredible story. It became an epic. By the end of my recording, I was like, "Holy smokes! I can't believe just what happened right there." Nature is not only there, but it knows we're there. Be with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
That was the strange experience that I had when I was on that resort in Africa, just in January when I was there, and I was feeding the giraffe, and I was busy with my hands full of corn, holding it there for the giraffe, and I was looking around at the ostriches and talking to the guide and sort of feeding this giraffe, and every time the giraffe took a mouthful out of my hand, as he lifted up his head, he bumped his nose against my shoulder. And at first, I thought it was quite funny because I'm quite a tall woman, so people often misjudge my height. And so I thought, this is so funny. The giraffe is misjudging my height. He thinks I'm a girl, but he doesn't realize. Well, he did it about 4 or 5 times until I realized that he was judging my height really well, and he was deliberately trying to get my attention because I was looking at everything else around me except him. And as soon as I caught his eye and like looked straight at him and he looked straight at me, he was fine. He stopped bumping my shoulder. Now I'd acknowledged him. And it was so extraordinary. I mean, there was this animal that was teaching me a lesson. It was incredible.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyway, Roger, so we've been talking about bees, and we're very excited to have Rush to join his bee story with ours. But before I ask you, Rush, to tell me your bee story, I would like you, Roger, to tell our viewers the story that you were telling me before we came on about their wings, about bees and bees' wings, because that's a strange duality.
There's actually a couple things that bees had that I found out that was pretty cool, because we were having that conversation last time with Rush of Waves, and I checked into it, and the cool thing that I found out about it was they also have a duality with their wings, because like the rate that they flap their wings is really, really fast, but as well as that, when they're flying, they can actually change the trajectory of their wings to where they can like freaking do 180 and go in a completely different direction at a moment's notice. You know?
Isn't that incredible?
And
isn't that incredible?
I found out that was actually duality too. And then they also went into saying that like when it comes to their role among their little bee societies, you have the pollinators and the predators. That's a duality. The pollinators, their role is to reproduce with the plants and pollinate it and stuff, where the predators have to hunt other insects for food for their larvae and everything. And they also went on to say that duality had to do with the fact that they cooperate with one another and within the hive to where they can get things done, but they're also competitive as well when it comes to like food and choosing mates. And,
right.
Then there was another one that I can't remember.
It'll come to you.
The needs of the individual bee is what it was. There's like they have a dual nature between like their own personal needs compared to the needs of the colony.
It's so strange. So not only are there two types of people, but there are two types of bee.
It's pretty interesting.
That's incredible.
And then you have like the worker bees, the drones, and then the queen bee. You know.
And do you know that the queen bee is just a normal bee? She just gets fed on different food. And because of the different food, she develops a different type of system. But she actually starts off as just a normal bee.
Well, I've heard some pretty bad stories about that too. Like I heard like they kick her to the side and they eat her alive.
What?
Yeah.
What? I've never heard that. She generally, when the hive gets old, she generally gathers together. When she's getting old and her egg laying rate drops off, generally the worker bees start making another queen. They get 3 or 4 different cells. They feed them this royal jelly to turn them into the queen, and then the first one of the queens that hatches goes to the other cells, the other queen cells, opens them up and kills them.
Oh my gosh.
And then and then the old queen smells that there's a new queen. She gathers her loyal workers and they swarm, and she goes off and finds herself another hive somewhere, and she leaves the big viable hive to the new queen. So I don't think they kill an existing, like a sitting queen, but the first one definitely does away with any competition before the competition can actually hatch. So yeah. amazing. Anyway, so our interest in bees, guys, for the listeners, our interest in bees has been sparked by something that Rush was telling us after the show that we did on electricity. So, Rush, I possibly should have asked you to do that as an introduction, but could you catch us up on what you were telling us about? Was it how that bumblebees can't fly and yet they fly? What is that extraordinary miracle?
Yes.
Rush?
Well, I'm sure as maybe many people have seen, because there are a few viral clips about this, and it's about their resonation. They're resonating. They have a resonating chamber in their body, and their wings actually produce a vibration that ends up resonating in a frequency that allows them to levitate. And then I would imagine they're still using those little wings to propel themselves forward in some degree, but or stabilization. But I mean, with what you call intelligence, an intelligent being, the bee, like you just were saying, there's a bit of intelligence. They know what they're doing. So with that power, with that capability, I'm sure they've used or grown to know how to use it. And when they do these tests on the bees and they put little trackers on them, the bee goes in a straight line to wherever it's going, no matter what direction. And the line is a very straight line. It doesn't get blown around by the wind. And I've seen this. I've seen out here and these were not honeybees. They're these bees that live underground, and they aren't very aggressive at all, and they just want water, really, because it's pretty dry out there. So they're just looking for water. And they got something going on. They pull stuff down there for sure. But who knows? I mean, they're so fast. They do their work. They're amazing. Anyways, they were flying up out of their place in a straight, perfect line, and it was a freeway, like this 2-inch, maybe by 2-inch. And then every couple once in a while, there'd be like some stragglers that weren't quite in the mix of everything, kind of going at the same speed, and they're all flying, I don't know, 10, 15 miles an hour one way, and the other ones are going the other way, and right in this tiny little channel in the air, in the atmosphere, and there was no movement, and there was wind out there, and there was like this, it looked like they were in a tunnel, but they weren't. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Wow.
It's really, really amazing. Yeah.
So they levitate.
Yeah, they're utilizing that duality in our nature to levitate. It's incredible. Those little drops that they levitate, like the drop. We see the videos, and they're levitating a drop above a speaker. Well, imagine if the drop is the speaker. You see, so it's like free to go as it produces its sound. It can squeeze that resonating chamber to direct that resonant field and just move. So they have the ability to understand the technology that they're using, for sure. I've had some experiences with bees that blow my mind. It's such cool little creatures. Yeah, I'd imagine that being on Earth, in a part of Earth, we all share some bit of at least knowledge of each other, but probably more than that. So I always feel like I'm sitting down with a brother when a bee passes by and lands. I'm like, brother, what's up? And they're really cool.
They are so cool. So how do they know where they're going in this little highway? Do they talk to each other?
Well, I mean, if you're resonating, that you feel that. Right. So they don't even have to. Everybody is in the field. Yeah.
That's so amazing. So Roger, come on, ask Rush your questions. I know that you were the one that was really wanting to find out about the bees.
Well, he basically said everything like right there on the bees part. That was pretty cool. That's the thing that caught my attention whenever we were talking, and it was after the stream, and I was like, man, that I wish we would have brought that up in the show because that's pretty cool, you know. And then, like what he said right there, I found out not only is it like the resonating part that goes with the bees, but they can also like use the direction of their wings to like go anywhere they want. Like they can. Now I know this is kind of off topic, but we are doing Wonderful World of Weirdness. But like, okay, so the one thing that stuck out in my mind with this was UFO sightings. Okay, like I do a lot of research into like the strange and unusual stuff, and like they always talk when it comes to flying saucers how they can just stop and go a completely different direction within a snap of the finger, and when I read that about bees, that's the first thing that popped into my head. That was kind of cool. And according to what I've known until I read that, there's nothing that can actually do that. But then I read that and it said bees can do it. So
it's amazing. So it could be that aliens have learned how bees fly and made flying machines on the model of bumblebees. Do you think that's even possible?
Maybe it's just a natural thing, They've learned the secrets of nature.
Yeah, I would imagine they're further along than the bumblebee. I mean, it is a really cool trick, but if you're in the know of that kind of technology and using it, that's a tiny little trick. You think it's cute. It's not like fast. It's not really that fascinating. I mean, it's cool because it's alive and it's flying around and it's using that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of powerful things that we'll be probably learning as we develop our technologies that will be more mainstream. But these things are known by our physicists. They're utilizing these things, and I like the fact that like all this stuff that comes out that kind of starts our conversation as laymen, and we're all just trying to learn something. All the like school projects, sometimes college, universities, and all these little neat things. All the technology is kind of being used in a neat way, and this and that. That's like, that's kind of how we start to understand these higher, ways of the workings of the world. Most people don't need to or want to know those things. It's just like their, I don't know, whatever, morning coffee, and they get their kids off to school. But yeah, bees are so fascinating. I mean, they always just open my mind up to a lot of possibilities watching the bees. Because certainly, I mean, there's things that if you see bees, there's all kinds of different kinds of bees. And then there are things that kind of look like bees, like wasps. And then, so just like it goes on forever with all these things that kind of share qualities and whatnot. So in my eyes, like that technology or that ability is in all living things.
Yes.
It's maybe not being utilized. Like bee uses it for locomotion, so it's highly evolved and they can use it really good, Imagine if they were super giant. Boy, that would be something else.
Imagine. So Do Better went to Boca Chica this morning at 7:00 to watch Starship take off. And I was just so hey, Do Good. So I was just thinking while you were talking about the bees and how they went, like how that spaceship takes off in a line. I wonder if it's possible with technology like this flying technology that we seem all of a sudden to suddenly be
Right.
embracing as a species.
Mm.
I wonder if we're going to have the airways as full as the roads. When I talk to people about drones, they say, oh no, there's going to be lots of accidents. But Rush, you say that they just all navigate these little channels just
Yeah.
without even being blown away by the wind. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of talk in the Tartaria community, the old world that's been long gone, that they had these flying ships like the Zeppelin, and uh, they use that technology. This is big bubble that they built, and it resonated at a certain frequency, and it allowed them to just go wherever they wanted to go in the atmosphere. It's very simple to manipulate the balloon's surface with ropes and whatnot to just direct it exactly how they want to go in the field.
Mm-hmm.
The ethereal field, which is supposedly one of those things that they minused from the school books so that we don't understand that realm, and we just use the system that's being developed as far as infrastructure and all that, and doing and getting whatever goals we're trying to accomplish as humanity. I certainly don't know about, but however, the infrastructure is being laid out. There's a reason for that, and we'll eventually get to another place in technology and time, and we'll be able to use something else, and we'll have a different, hopefully more health-centered approach, because it's hard on the life, and the planet is so precious, and we want to save those bees and frogs.
That's
and
right. That's
so
right.
we got to find something that's even better.
Because that rocket that took off has 33 engines or something. That must make a lot of pollution stuff. But the UFOs, Roger, they don't seem to have those sort of propellants. They don't need a lot of fuel and a lot of flames and everything. A lot of the stuff that we know about UFO, it's very much like bumblebees. They somehow harness a different sort of energy.
Well, first, before I go any further, let me just make it clear, UFOs is basically just, hypothesis, basically. It's, sightings and stuff like that. There's really no scientific proof that says they exist, but they have had sightings and stuff of that nature. Now, when it comes to the bees and what I read about how they can change directions like they do, that is something that related to the UFOs, and it stuck to me. I mean, they're, I don't know what they're using for fuel source or anything like that, but I do know the rockets that are getting shot up into space, they do have pollutants and everything, but for the technology that any vehicle it has that capability it's beyond what we have. Our ships and our airplanes can't do that kind of maneuverability. So that's the thing that I can say. That's pretty amazing about it. But the type of fuel they're using or anything, they could be using water for all we know. We have a planet that's 75% water. Who's to say that they're not using water to frickin' travel among the stars? We don't know.
Indeed. But yeah, carry on.
I'm done. I was just.
Oh, okay. so Rush, getting back to the bumblebees, when they levitate, right? Explain it again to me. They flap their wings and the vibrations of the wings make them levitate. But hang on, start again for me. I'm confused. How does it work?
Resonation, like the sound is resonating inside of the structure of the beat. It's a there's
the sound.
they have a chamber, right? It's like a drum, right? And so they start beating at a certain vibration, and that vibration begins to reverberate in the chamber. And the chamber then becomes active when it starts to interact with other frequencies. And so when it achieves a symbiotic frequency with what's around it, it becomes in the notion of that vibration. And so if it taps into the main vibration going on, it just gets to go wherever it wants to go. It uses its wings as, like I said, maybe stabilizers and maybe direction change. Like it can still use them, but they're so for like hovering, for landing, they're like little landers and to take off and stuff. But and to get up into that field, especially when a bunch of them are going and they've got like this groundwork, this like echo of sound they put into the atmosphere, and it's a high vibration from this little tight drum that they have, right? So they, it's incredible. It's if everything, like Tessa said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, you think of, what did he say, vibration, and I'm so terrible at quotes, but I should know this, frequency and vibration. So all of these frequencies have special property, at least bonding with themselves, and like a wave in the ocean. If you study wave dynamics, as the waves will combine as they travel across the ocean. And so when a real big one, obviously it's real easy to soak up all the little ones, or the little ones to catch up to it and add to it. But sometimes there'll be like sets of waves and traveling, and they kind of are near each other, or one will kind of swing over and start getting closer to another set, and they have a different wavelength so they actually repel each other and then go back another way. So they'll actually bounce off each other as big sets of moving waves. It's amazing, just because they're a little different.
Wow.
Yeah.
So all the time that we have spoken about vibrations, Rush, I have always been thinking about vibrations in terms of thoughts. And it's so fascinating for me to realize that I've left out all these actual physical vibrations. Are you saying that each creature on Earth causes actual physical vibrations in the environment around them, as well as these other sort of brain waves and thought vibrations? Are there two sets of vibrations that we make?
Yeah, a whole spectrum of vibrations, and our voices all together. I mean, we're all they have the soprano voice, or the low and the high voices there, but we're pretty close in spectrum there, so we can hear each other. Sometimes older people, they can't hear certain vibration that in their ear, and being that's the olfactory nerve center, and it looks like one of the first senses we have. It leads definitely the scientific community to really recognize how much sound plays a role in everything. I don't know. It almost creates the lattice of reality for everything else to exist on, and there are all the other things, right? So, but it has a function, that is amazing. Yeah. And when you listen to somebody sing, and you can hear how they feel, it's like in that sound is deeper vibrations that come to you because they're using their cavity, their nasal cavity, and their lungs and their chest to reverberate what it feels like to them, whatever message they're trying to get across. Sometimes people really connect with an entertainer, and they know exactly what they're up there saying,
Mm-hmm.
and they're, someone in the audience is listening. It's like it's. But most of the time, they're there, to just see the broader message, especially performers and stuff. But to really hear somebody, you'll hear all kinds of frequencies. Like you said, brain frequency and their oral, just their general frequency that's built up over time, like with magnetism. There's like a certain field there as well that resonates back, and it's a signature of of sound. And you can tell when someone walks in the room and they haven't even said anything, they have a certain signature of sound they're already putting off. You can feel it.
Good
So,
heavens. Gosh, it's amazing. So if we go and colonize the moon and Mars, Roger, do you think if we take our animals and our creatures and everything to other planets, do you think that they will carry on being and working the same as they work here? Or do you think that they'll change to be on a different planet?
Well,
I mean,
with that, like you guys are talking about vibration, right?
yeah.
And the thing about vibrations that's most important that you got to realize is everything vibrates. Like they actually put a telescope up into the skies and they looked at planets and found that even the planets in space vibrate. They have vibrations that they let off, so you can see them kind of jittering back and forth, and that's literally planets singing, so that's the way I look at it. Everything does have its vibrations, and you can
Time
see
specific.
it even that way, and for me, what really sticks out when you have these discussions like about bees and about vibrations and what I just said with the planets, it makes me think of gravitational force.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And the thing of it is if we take these animals and we take them out of this environment and we introduce it into another environment with a completely different vibration or gravitational force, it'll produce different results. So what they were doing here may not be the same as what they're going to do on that other planet. And today, even NASA is kind of questioning that. Like everybody's like, well, why should they be so precautious about astronauts coming back to make sure that they're sterile and stuff? Well,
Yes.
they don't want to introduce contaminants to that other planet, and they don't want to bring any back here, which a lot of astronauts have an issue with. They don't think it's important, but for me, I personally feel it's better safe than sorry. You don't want to destroy an entire ecosystem because you're careless.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's basically my take on it.
So interesting. I think that the people who are sort of being born now, all the new little babies that are being born now, are going to be growing up expecting us to be interplanetary creatures. It's so fascinating.
We should be already.
Yeah. Why do you think we aren't?
Because freaking people don't want to explore right now. They want to play around with their little iPhones and get on the internet and do cool things. We should be in space.
Well, we should be in space. Well, sadly, as always happens, we get to this fascinating place and we want to carry on and we've run out of time. So before we end, I would just like to ask you guys if you have anything final you would like to say as we round this off? Anything that you wanted to bring to the discussion or have as a final thought? Rush, how about you?
Yeah, actually, it was we're on duality here, are
Yeah.
we?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So I guess a real big thing that's been in my attention a lot lately is um, the duality of knowing and the dual and of not knowing. So kind of made up this little graph here I've been using and just knowing that sometimes I guess I think I know something, and that's great and all, and I celebrate that sometimes. Like, that's really cool to know. And then there are most times where actually I know nothing, which is actually all the time. I mean, it's more of a true statement. And so the more I can move in between those two places of sometimes I think I know, and then knowing again that I know nothing, the more I find acceptance in my life, and the more I get to know myself in a deeper way and know my intentions and can see my destiny, and certainly not being stuck in either of those things. Like, I don't need to, definitely don't need to walk around all the time thinking I know stuff. But it's a great tool to have. And then, all the times I'm walking around and I really know nothing, that would be silly to not know how to open a door or, turn off a faucet. But so, we do need that as well, though, to just be at peace with ourselves and not need to know stuff and just be. And so, yeah, it just really hits on me, that duality of knowing, not knowing, and finding my way in life, what I want to do and find out and learn, and stay on my path.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like when we're considering something like bees and the miracle of them, it does really show you that even though we know so much and we can examine the creatures and we can understand the forces, in the end, we do have to approach it all with this humility of like, wow, how can this be? Yeah. Roger, over to you. Final thoughts for today.
Well, I mean, today, actually, from the beginning, even when we first started, we started talking about the masculine aspects and the female, or the feminine. I need to stop saying female. I always do that, but the feminine aspects of nature. We've had conversations about buoyancy, electrostatic, and everything with rush of waves, and plus the bees. And I brought up gravitational force too, here recently. And those are the masculine aspects of nature. But like Rush of Wave says, it's about just being. Sometimes, you have to have balance, and that's one thing that people need to understand. It's cool to know all that stuff, but the feminine aspect of nature is just the pure beauty of nature itself. You know what I mean? Sometimes just looking at nature and seeing how beautiful it is enough. You don't always have to search and try to find. It's cool to do that. I love doing that stuff, but the beauty of nature itself is good too. So don't forget that aspect. Sit and watch the sun go down sometime.
Yes, indeed. Wow, guys, what an interesting discussion. I am dead keen for the next one. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for bringing all these fascinating ideas to the table. And also to our listeners, thank you all for being with us. Thank you for those of you who have been with us the whole time. It's very great to know that we do have this little core of followers who are there and supporting us. So thanks very much, guys. Please do remember that if you have any comments, if you have anything that you would like us to delve into in a future show, please don't hesitate to drop your ideas in the comment section. And apart from that, just thank you. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Rush. And we will be back again this time next week. And until then, stay well and have fun. Goodbye, guys.